Here are a few effects that zero gravity has on the body. Number 9. Weakened bones. All's good in space until you break a bone, or 10. Spaceflight osteopenia is the astronauts' version of the disease osteoporosis, only worse. Astronauts lose around 1% of bone mass per month while in space, and this could increase after long periods of exposure to zero gravity. Spaceflight osteopenia is the same bone loss that an elderly person would lose, except, obviously, astronauts are typically only around 30 years old. Although there is actually a small amount of bone that does grow while an astronaut is in space, it's growing in a weird way. Bone growth happens in the direction of mechanical stress, and in space, there is no mechanical stress. So basically, the body is growing every which way all over the place, which is actually making bones weaker. So, why exactly does this happen? 2 reasons. Lack of gravity, which is duh, and calcium expulsion through urine. Wait, what? If astronauts pee in space, their bones pretty much start to disintegrate? Well, you guessed it, astronauts can't just stop peeing. So, researchers designed a super clever plan to counteract these effects. Good old exercise. Living in space is a constant workout. In fact, astronauts actually exercise at least 2 hours per day when in space. I guess working out better be on your list of favorite things to do when you're an astronaut. Even after astronauts are back on Earth, the pain doesn't stop. Walking and standing become superhuman chores, and it can take up to 3 years to get back the bone loss, if ever. I wonder what the life expectancy for the average human being in zero gravity would be. Number 8. Loss of muscle mass. Oh, did you think that it would only be bone loss? An astronaut also loses a lot of muscle. Without Earth's gravity pulling you down, your muscles take a nice little vacation and eventually disappear. So say goodbye to whatever gains you've had after those hours at the gym if you want to visit space. Without constant exercise, astronauts can lose up to 20% of muscle in only 10 days. That's just insane. Wow. This incredible amount of muscle loss has been compared by the UK Space Agency to a 20-year-old turning into a 60-year-old in only 3 months. Researchers have tried many different alternatives to help astronauts redevelop that lost muscle tissue, but apparently, lifting free weights and doing cardio are the things that have worked best. Do I really need to say this? Gym equipment has to be modified to the environment. I'm sure you guys have figured out that a 200-pound weight will most definitely not weigh 200 pounds in space. Even after all that outer space exercise, upon arriving back to Earth, astronauts still have trouble standing up and balancing themselves on their own feet. You could say they get to time travel and experience how it feels to be 100, I guess. That's one sensation I'm not in a rush to feel. Number 7. Losing track of your body. While the human body adapts to zero gravity, it's a shock not being constantly pulled down. Actually, it's a shock not having a down to speak of. This causes a disruption in the senses that researchers call loss of proprioception. This is the loss of one's grasp in the world. An Apollo astronaut said that the first night he experienced in space, he realized that he had lost track of his arms and legs. He couldn't even tell if he had limbs. That has to be quite an out-of-body experience. I guess zero gravity would be a great type of therapy for people with chronic types of pain in their body. This loss of feeling has caused problems in space before. In the Apollo 9 crew, Rusty Schweickart had to delay a spacewalk because he was feeling queasy. If he puked while in his spacesuit, the vomit could spread in his helmet, which would most likely make it quite difficult to see, or even interfere with his breathing, causing him to potentially choke to death. Now that's one way I'd imagine would be an embarrassing and painful way to go. Number 6. Astronaut moon face. It's pretty common to look at pictures of astronauts and see a round, full face. Come on, you guys really think that the food in space is actually that good? Nope. The effect is usually called moon face. And no, it's not caused by looking too much at the moon. It's actually the effect of zero gravity on bodily fluids. Without gravity to pull it downwards, all sorts of fluids are floating around and are redistributed to the upper body. resulting in bulging neck veins, puffy face, and nasal congestion. That could make one hell of a sexy Skype call, don't you think? The normal mechanisms that keep fluids down are pretty much useless in space, and the 60% of blood that's usually in the lower limbs on Earth goes up and elsewhere after a mere 30 seconds in zero-gravity environment. We're talking about everything here, from blood to mucus. Astronauts have said that spaceflight actually feels a lot as if they had a perpetual cold. The good thing is, immediately after returning to Earth, a lot of these effects disappear, thank goodness. The bad thing is, depending on the length of the trip, you're basically getting that physical feeling of having a cold all the time for the entire length of your trip. Think about that for a second. Yep. Number 5. Loss of fluids. The same mechanisms that make astronauts look moon-faced and congested cause a cascade of after effects that can be pretty dangerous if not treated. After the redistribution of bodily fluids, the heart doesn't need to work as hard to get blood to every inch of your body, as there already is blood kind of just going everywhere without gravity at all. The weakened heart will cause low blood pressure in the legs and mess with the ability of the body to send enough oxygen where and when it's time to get back on Earth. Under normal conditions, blood pressure is higher in the legs and lower in the brain. These changes caused by the redistribution of blood in space makes the brain internal pressure increase. The body then believes there's too much fluid in the body, and the astronaut's body lowers its blood volume by typically about 20% of total blood volume in the first days of zero gravity. The same thing happens to plasma volume as well. Less fluid to pump around means less work for the heart, thus slowing it down. This means that if you stay in space long enough, your heart could eventually stop altogether. Okay, I'm just seeing if you guys are paying attention. Your heart's gonna eventually stop working anyways, but just not because you're in space. But trust me, going to space is still risky business. So with a loss of blood volume, how does it feel to get back to Earth? Once astronauts are back on Earth, they feel queasy, and most of them can't even stand on their feet for more than 10 minutes without fainting. Nevertheless, after drinking ginormous quantities of water and juice, and also some really good meals, I'm sure they're back to normal in just a few days. Number 4. Space sickness. Comparing space travel to a bad carnival ride might be a stretch, but symptoms are quite similar. Nausea, vomiting, vertigo, headaches. Long story short, you'll be feeling like the first couple of days in space. It's related to motion sickness as the body's vestibular system adapts to weightlessness. Space motion sickness is caused by changes in G-forces, which affect spatial orientation in humans. Gravity plays a major role in our spatial orientation. Changes in gravitational forces influence our spatial orientation and require adaptation. The changes in the perception of space causes the body to produce visual orientation illusions that mess with your mind. One second you're feeling okay, and the next minute you're feeling like you're upside down. Except there's really no upside down since you're weightless. That could mess with anyone's mind, you know? After a couple of days in space, the body adapts and you start to feel like your orientation is the normal orientation no matter your surroundings. There's an unofficial scale for space sickness used by NASA, the Garn scale. This was named for United States Senator Jake Garn, whose sickness during a zero-gravity test was the worst on record ever. That would be an embarrassing honor to say the least. Apparently, the senator vomited, fainted, and lost balance and didn't get much better after returning to normal conditions. According to one, Garn is equivalent to the most severe possible case of space sickness. I guess no one wants to be known because of that. Still, that terrible precedent hasn't deterred other politicians of trying out the zero-G facilities whenever they can. Number 3. Eye troubles. NASA has also found that eyes and eyesight suffer significant changes after space flights longer than 6 months. Flattened eyeballs and changes in the retina have been reported, and astronauts have declared that their vision is blurry after coming back from a long period in space. As I mentioned before, because weightlessness increases the amount of fluid in the upper part of the body, astronauts experience increased intracranial pressure. This appears to increase pressure on the backs of the eyeballs, which affects their shape and slightly crushes the optic nerve. Another curious effect is known as the cosmic ray phenomena, or aka light flashes. These are spontaneous flashes of light perceived by astronauts outside the Earth's magnetosphere. We don't actually know if these light flashes are perceived or actual light that goes off in space. Apparently, these could all be the product of the eye's reaction to phosphenes in the atmosphere, which are sensations of light produced by the activation of neurons along the visual pathway. I'm pulling the conspiracy theory card here. NASA is just trying to hide aliens from us. Most of these mysterious flashes have been reported to be white, although some astronauts have seen blue, yellow, or even green flashes. Maybe these are the auroras of space? Maybe they're just stars? Apparently these flashes look like spots or small streaks in the empty darkness of space. Some astronauts have described the flashes like comets, clouds, or even supernovas. The flashes are also happening fairly often. Most astronauts claim to have seen them every 2 to 3 minutes. That's a lot. I'm still standing by the alien theory and calling NASA's bluff. They just want to communicate with us. Come on. Haven't you watched any space movie? Number 2. Excess flatulence. Remember we said that space affects muscles and causes muscle loss? Well, that goes for all of the muscles, including the muscles on your belly and nether regions. Muscle loss around the abdomen won't only mean that your beloved six-pack is MIA, but also that you have less of an ability to stop that natural gas from coming out after a meal. So, you can say crews really get to know each other while in space. Hopefully this doesn't happen to Kate Upton while she did her photo shoot in 0G. Anyways, researchers have studied for years the mechanics of farting in space. Yeah, someone's job is actually measuring space farts. This is because human flatulence is actually composed of 2 gases, hydrogen and methane. These are both highly flammable gases. If the gas concentration reaches a high enough level within a small space, like space capsule or even a spacesuit, a small spark could destroy everything in its reach, like a fart-induced nuclear bomb. This means that unaccounted flatulence in a spaceship could actually result in spontaneous combustion and death by farts. In the 60s, a research team actually took it upon themselves to measure the frequency and composition of flatulence among a space crew in order to determine what kinds of foods would make the trip less gassy. This is why space food is bland. That kind of diet reduces gas and diminishes explosion risk. You can thank that fart-smelling team for their amazing work. Number 1. Long-term dangers of space. Okay, you got me. This isn't really an effect of a zero-gravity environment, but at this point, we've been talking about being in space for so long, we might as well brush up on just a little bit of the dangers of being in space. It hasn't actually been thoroughly studied, but the high levels of radiation that astronauts are exposed to during their lifetime could exponentially increase their risk of cancer. This is because being exposed to gamma and X-rays can cause cellular mutation and increase the body's potential of developing certain diseases. In 2012, NASA received a study showing that spaceflight could harm the brains of astronauts and accelerate the start of Alzheimer's disease. Apparently, high radiation to brain cells could offset the disease and cause other cognitive issues such as disorientation and confusion. A neuroscientist at the University of Rochester, Kevin O'Banion, has stated that space radiation poses a significant risk for the development of Alzheimer's in former astronauts. I guess if you're really into aging, then you should really get to outer space. Astronauts from the Apollo missions are also 5 times more likely to die from heart disease than any other astronaut. What? Further studies show that the radiation is probably the main cause because in that time, space capsules didn't have the same protections as today, making astronauts from those initial flights more vulnerable to radiation and their more recent counterparts. A little too late for that warning, if I say so myself, but hey, those are always the risks of being the guinea pig. Here's what's next.
1998, men had very few ways to combat erectile dysfunction. They either had to get an injection or get a prosthetic implant, neither of which sounded too pleasant. Viagra was originally known as UK 92480. It began